So in the remaining of the session, we'll focus on solar technologies and the use of solar technologies for fecal sludge management. I'll go right in because we're a little bit behind. Our first speaker is Michael Hoffman. Michael is the James Irvine Professor of Environmental Science and Engineering at the California Institute of Technology. He's an elected member of the U.S. National Academy of Engineering. He's also a Global Vision Scholar at the Sylva University in Beijing. His presentation will provide an update on the Caltech solar toilet system as it transitions into manufacturing and advanced prototype development. And I forgot to introduce myself. Let me do that too. My name is Banu Örmeci. I'm a professor and clinical researcher at Caltech University in Canada, and I'm also the chair of the IWA Sludge Management.
Okay, I'll give you a pictorial update on our development of a solar-powered toilet system that's self-contained. The water and the waste are treated on-site. The water is totally recycled and maintained. I point out that the RTTC program of the Gates Foundation started in the summer of 2011. So this prototype that I'm explaining today was simply a paper concept in the summer of 2011. We're now moving into the manufacturing phase, and I'll explain the steps that are being taken, and I'll give you an update on the function. This is a solar toilet unit that was designed and built in a cooperative joint venture effort with several companies in Yixing, China, near the city of Wuxi, not too far from Nanjing. It's known as the environmental technology capital of China. They use local products in the system as opposed to some of the products that we used in our initial development in the US. So this is a typical prototype. Classical panels, they are produced in Yixing. Each panel puts out about 300 watts of power. The power is stored in batteries, so everything is powered off the battery storage. Although we have the capacity to use AC current or AC power into the system, which is converted to DC to then store in the battery. So the joint venture activities are these four groups. We have two private donors that have funded the enterprise, along with the state of Jiangsu and the city of Yixing in China. Inside the toilet room, which was patterned after one of our initial prototypes, they use Kohler products because we had initially used Kohler products. The Kohler company, which is the world's largest single producer of toilets. So two flush toilet systems, a urinal, and a wash basin. The unit is located right now, this particular unit, on an elementary school campus in Yixing. There are about 1,000 students that attend this particular elementary school. We came one morning in December to see the kids exercise before going to class. The unit was opened up. The sun obviously is not hitting the solar panels. It wasn't placed in an optimal position for capturing sunlight in December. Inside the unit, we have a number of unit operations or processes that have been integrated. It's all computer controlled, electronically controlled. It can operate automatically 24 hours a day. We have initially a membrane bioreactor system that's used to process the collected waste before it's taken to an electrochemical processing system. So this slide is broken up to show you part of the treatment process. There is then a effluent holding tank, and when water is needed to fill the flush water tank, which is located above, water is pumped up and then processed through a sequential electrochemical processing. It's essentially applying what we call water splitting using semiconductor electrode systems to basically tear apart water. We also oxidize chloride to chlorine at very low applied potentials, and chlorine plays a very big role in processing the waste. So you can see the effluent from the anaerobic digester. About 50% of the COD is decomposed within the membrane digester system. You see particles that are still suspended in the water, and the color is brown. This is the second stage, and after a given treatment time, which is about 2.5 to 3 hours, the water is then pumped back through a filter system into the flush water tank. Roughly 100 students use the toilet facility on a daily basis. Based on the counting, maybe only 10 to 15 actually contribute with feces. It's mainly a spot for urination. One of my colleagues from Tsinghua is shown here after using the toilet. We also have prototypes that are being tested in India now, just to set the stage. The prototype that we displayed in New Delhi at the toilet fair last March is shown here. This is now situated in the state of Kerala in southwestern India, in the southernmost state of India at Mahatma Gandhi University. Here it is located at the university. Once again, anywhere from 100 to 150 students use the toilet on a daily basis. The contribution of feces is quite low. That's what we've found so far in operation in the field. At Caltech, where our prototype has been operating now for essentially 2 years, many more students and faculty actually contribute their feces. But the problem in India is that people are reluctant to use the so-called public toilet in the same way so far in China. So the water is processed on a daily basis. It's all self-contained. We don't discharge any water to the environment. Water is lost to evaporation in the system, and we maintain a pretty good steady state. We have another treatment unit in operation in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat State, in a city park, in collaboration with Iran, and that collaboration is continuing. One thing we noticed, once again, in Ahmedabad, mainly urine is contributed to the toilet system, but we also found in India that men and other users, women I suppose, we don't keep track of the numbers, actually wash their feet with this anal washing spray guns that we've provided in each unit. So the units in India for the toilet room look like this. These are Kohler products that are made for the Indian market. You can see the anal washing flushing device. We installed a flush toilet, but because of the pumping system that we use a SaniFlow system that grinds up any of the solids, so all the solids come out as a fine particle suspension. We also have a pump bidet for treating the backside. Now, in the current Chinese prototype system that we will soon have in operation on the Tsinghua campus, we essentially have the toilet, a fecal collection box, a SaniFlow macerating pump system into the folded plate anaerobic digester. It's a membrane-supported anaerobic digester. The effluent from the digester, given the characteristic residence time in the system, then moves on to the regulation tank, which I showed in the shipping container, into the electrochemical reactor sequence. We have capacity for 3 sequential electrochemical reactors. You can see the reactors on display here without wastewater in them. They depend on mixed metal oxide semiconductors, and we get very high efficiency in terms of conversion of COD, production of chlorine, and disinfection of the waste. You can see some of the waste shown here in the processor during treatment. You see a lot of bubbles because we generate hydrogen as a useful byproduct. The microorganisms are killed off in about 3 hours of processing. We see E. coli, Enterococcus, adenovirus, and phage are killed off within a reasonable length of treatment time, roughly around 60 minutes to eliminate the organisms. We're also developing prototypes with the Kohler Company in the U.S. for single-family usage, so the scale is reduced to satisfy the needs of the single family, but the concept is very similar. We also develop electronic control systems to replace the Chinese version, which goes from floor to ceiling. Our electronic control system that keeps everything operating is in a little black box, which you can see inside the black box here, and we call it the Caltech wastewater treatment power supply and control system. Manufacturing is underway. This is the manufacturing complex that will soon go online for the entire system. We've developed a modular design and an IKEA-like structure system that can be assembled in the field, everything installed. So it's a prefab construction idea to simplify assembly in the field and transportation. Some idea how you can piece it together. If you have trouble reading IKEA instructions, you may have trouble here too. But it can be folded down, and so we can have essentially 4 units stored in one international shipping container. We have a variety of other options. Sorry, this is in Chinese, but there are many configurations that are being offered. I conclude here with reference to a recent article that's soon to appear in Environmental Science and Technology, and it points out how many valuable metals are present in sewage sludge. And they point out, at least in the U.S., based on a city of 1 million people, the value of the combined average content of gold and silver in sewage sludge equals 2.6 million a year. So the gold color in the sewer. I'll conclude there, but that gives you a brief overview of where we are. Okay.
Are there any questions? There's time maybe for 1 or 2 questions. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for a brilliant presentation. My name is Stefan from Borda. I would like to know about the investment and depreciation. How long time do you think such a system should be going until it pays back, or where are we with the investment costs compared to other systems?
Okay, we have things calibrated on a 10 or 20-year period of time. The major operating expenses are essentially replacement of the batteries. So if we get higher energy density storage batteries like lithium metal batteries that can be recharged, then the battery replacement costs come way down. That's the main driver on operational costs, in fact. In terms of taking a prototype, a one-off prototype, and trying to scale what it's going to be at large-scale production, that's very hard to do right now. I can tell you that one of my colleagues who actually produces commercially the semiconductor electrodes that we've designed over the years, he can, if we order 60 electrode arrays, he reduces the price in half. So the volume of production is a very critical factor in terms of potential payback and what the overall cost of the unit may be. We're shooting certainly for something less than $15,000. We think we can build a let's say, a simplified system for, let's say, $5,000 right now. But it wouldn't be as well integrated as the system we're showing here.
Is your unit sludge-free?
Okay, we've been operating for 2 years. We have no net accumulation of sludge. We have an ongoing digestion problem or process that takes place. We have a sludge bed that's constant in a 2,000-liter storage tank that's roughly that deep over time. We do produce inorganic deposition products. Calcium hydroxyapatite is the major product. Because we denitrify the system, we have breakpoint chlorination during the process. So we totally eliminate nitrate. So we don't get struvite formation. We actually get hydroxyapatite formation because with continuous recycle, the phosphate builds up into the system until the solubility product constant is exceeded and it precipitates out. So eventually we have to unload the hydroxyapatite, which is a major component of our bones and teeth, as you may know. But it could be a potential fertilizer.
Who does the maintenance of these systems?
Well, we're not in full-scale continuous operation, but right now the students at Mahatma Gandhi University and then their students at the IIT Gandhinagar, they keep track of the unit along with ERAM in Ahmedabad. In terms of the Yixing unit, it's the local company that keeps track of the unit. The new unit going in at Beijing University, which is a multi-person system, will be maintained by the department on the Tsinghua campus.
Thank you. Thank you. So we need to move to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Wade Edwards. He has a PhD in biotechnology and background in microbiology and biochemistry. He spent several years in academia before co-founding 2 companies in the biopharma and wastewater engineering sectors. He is currently project leader on a WRC, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded project, which is the subject of this presentation.
And part of the issues that we're looking at in terms of this project, and just to say that we're about halfway through this project, so I'll try and address all the questions at the end, but just to clarify that we are still busy in progress with this research. So the challenge that we're looking at in this project is to look at an alternative micro-entrepreneurship model that can close the sanitation loop. And that means getting informal settlement community members and rural community members involved in the sanitation channel and the value chain. And the primary reason is that many of these communities live completely off the grid. There's very little chance in the next 10, 20 years that they will be connected to the grid, both in terms of electricity supply as well as sewage. And municipalities in deep rural areas are fairly dysfunctional, so pit emptying services just do not exist. Part of the reason is that the topography of these areas is very restricted in terms of access. So we've taken all those things into account to try and develop an entrepreneurship model that basically depends on looking at a communal evolution system that is serviced by a community member who acts as a micro-entrepreneur. And it's a cartridge-based system, a CBS type system. So the communal evolution block, the sludge removal is via cartridges. And then the challenge then is to firstly pasteurize the sludge and then actually make it a viable, saleable product for the entrepreneur, so that the revenue is not based on toilet usage, but on a product that's beneficiated out of the sludge removal process. And because these communities are really off the grid, the last speaker, we're completely the other polar end of the spectrum. There's virtually no technology involved in this because of the issue of maintenance and services for that technology. It just cannot happen out in some of these rural areas. They're hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest town or centre that could possibly supply them with parts, electronics, replacement components, etc. So I'll get back to this problem in just now. But the first part of the process is to provide communal evolution blocks. And as I said, some of the topography in rural South Africa, especially the Eastern Cape, is such that you can't take containers on flatbed trucks. So we've teamed up with a company that started in the US, boat shelters. Basically, they ship a system like this in a box, and it takes 4 community members 1 day to rent the system. So they're quite interested in developing this into an evolution facility, because while you have homes that can look like this, you don't have the evolution system. That's where our system comes in. So essentially, the evolution system is a converted boat shelter. Access to the toilet cartridges from the rear by the community member who's the micro-entrepreneur. And we've had to look at the toilet and redesign that. We're still in the process of doing that design and manufacture. But essentially, the cartridge has got 2 systems. One where the sludge is collected, and the system here that locks into the ventilation system. Typical cartridge systems, and a couple of people I spoke with here, cartridge systems are problematic because of the odor situation. They don't work like VIPs. So we've tried to integrate that process so that just like a VIP, the odors are sucked out of the evolution facility. Once that's been removed, the issue is what do you do with that sludge? The key challenge is that in the middle of nowhere, you can't just bury the sludge, because what we're trying to do is provide a model where that sludge becomes a value-add product. So the first thing that's a critical process in the chain is to pasteurize and eliminate all the pathogens. And in order to do that, Africa does not have a shortage of sun. So we're going actually to be using solar power, but instead of the solar panel type system linked to batteries and electrical circuitry, we're looking at the concentrated solar power using parabolic troughs. Now these work at scale all over the world. There are huge fields of these things. They work well, they act as heat exchangers. I'm not going to go into the details. So what we did was we miniaturized that. And we stuck it onto the back of a bicycle trailer. So basically the entrepreneur owns this trailer. There you can see the cartridge there. It's a normal bicycle wheel, 26-inch mountain bike wheel. And that can be tagged onto the back of a bicycle and driven around a rural community area. And it's not limited by the topography as well. Once the entrepreneur is ready to use the system, the panels unfold. And the way concentrated solar power works, the parabolic trough, is this is all reflected, sunlight is reflected onto a focal band. And the focal band is where we put the sludge in. So the sludge goes through here, and then pasteurizes the sludge while it's passing through the system. Doesn't work. We've burned ourselves many times. It gets incredibly hot. but does it work enough to pasteurize sludge? And that's the next big challenge. So what we based it on is Asker's depth, yield, thermal depth point. We're looking at between 60 and 90 degrees. Right? We need to get the system operating there. And these are two graphs showing a normal daily operation. And these are thermal couples that we put along the concentrated tube where the sludge passes through. These two graphs don't have sludge in them, but they give you a representation or baseline of what can happen on a normal day. And this is ambient temperature here, normal day about 25 degrees here. And in Cape Town we've got a lot of strong wind, some cloud cover, so we have to test the system to see that the tube can still remain at temperature above the thermal depth point for Ascaris. So just to show you now, this is without sludge in the tube. We're reaching temperatures of about 200 degrees. And with sludge in the tube, sludge introduced over here, you do get a temperature drop, but the majority of the tube stays above 90 degrees. So while we're in this pasteurization temperature range, we're not in the range where we can convert the sludge to a biochar, which is our ultimate goal. But one of the main reasons for that is we've designed this based very much on simplicity. We don't have an evacuated chamber around the focal point, and that means we're getting a lot of heat loss through radiation. So we're working on that just to improve it. We used just for the rheology experiments, the synthetic sludge, the recipe we got from Chris Buckley's group at the University of Delft. You can see before and after. You can see this is not cloud, that's the steam coming off the system as the sludge is going through. Right. So briefly we'll be touching on this, and getting to this point. We still need to get a product out of the sludge from the beneficiation process. And what we're looking at is biochar and compost. That's ultimately where we're going to go through. So what's next? At the same time, parallel, we've started introducing clean burn cook stoves to the community members, in the hope that once we get to the point where we supply biochar, we've branded the system and the community have accepted it. So this at the moment can use biochar, but it's not integrated in our system yet. It's a gasification stove, so it's got a double chamber, it works like a rocket stove and TLUD, means it's pretty much smokeless. So there's a big health impact in the rural areas where cooking is done inside the household. And we've introduced this to the communities in Cape Town, in rural Eastern Cape. And the reason we've done this is because the micro entrepreneur is looking for not only selling the biochar, but also looking at different models where the community members can pay for the stove and eventually the biochar. So we're exploring different models using mobile payment systems like Pesa and the Grameen Bank Group Microfinance System. This works really well in rural areas because a group of 5 people get finance, for example, for the stove, and the other 4 members of the group are responsible for seeing that the first member pays the installments, or otherwise the second member doesn't get the microfinance loan. So it's just a number of models that we're looking at to close this loop. And provide a revenue model that's sustainable in the sanitation value chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you. sorry, my name is Jacques Braston, I'm in Barcelona, South Africa. To make this viable option for the both the user and for the entrepreneur on the cartridge side of it, how long does it take to fill the cartridge in a household? The standard in South Africa is about 6 people. And so on that question, what type of monetary will be paid to the entrepreneur for emptying the cartridge by the owner?
Right, thanks for the question. We haven't sized the final cartridge volume yet. And the reason for that is that we're optimizing the throughput on the solar pyrolysis system. So once we've optimized that, we'll be able to size the system. Because it doesn't help that the micro entrepreneur can only pyrolyze 1 cartridge a day. So that's going to be dependent on feedback from when we finalize the conversion process. Once we've got the evacuation tube in the system, we can reach high temperatures to achieve pyrolysis, which is about 300-400 degrees. We'll be able to figure out the throughput and then size it accordingly and work backwards in terms of the design process.
One other question. That's the same question. One more question. Okay, so thank you, Wayne. Our next speaker is Dr. Carl Linden, who is the Helen and Hoovercroft Endowed Professor of Environmental Engineering at the University of Colorado Boulder in USA, and he was my postdoc supervisor at Duke. His research focuses on next-generation innovative water and wastewater treatment solutions. He is currently leading a team developing sanitation solutions as part of the Gates Foundation Reinvent the Toilet Challenge. Thanks.
Thank you, Manu. Thanks to the first 2 speakers, set up my talk quite well. Our approach to toilet design is again to kind of eliminate the sludge production and produce a biochar product, produce a usable end product on site in real time throughout the day, throughout the days of processing. I want to first acknowledge our team. We're funded a year after Mike's team from Caltech. We've been, again, going from a paper concept to an operating unit in about 1.5 years or 2 years was an incredible journey. But a lot of people made that happen, these folks here. And since then, we've been partnering the last month and a half or so with a company in Boulder called Brightspace, who've really brought some of the technologies we were developing to another level and helped to really decreasing our cost. I'm looking forward to developing a further system, which I'll talk to you about today as well. And some of this work by Brightspace is funded by the Department of Energy, so they're really interested in some of the technologies there. They put quite a bit of money into this, and of course, thanks to the Gates Foundation for funding this work. So as we saw before, there's concentrated solar energy come basically in 3 types. There's this parabolic trough here, there's this concentrated dish, and then there's this tower system where it's a receiver from many different reflectors can be received and the energy concentrated. We're focusing on this type of design, and in our next phase looking at both of these as kind of a hybrid system for processing fecal sludge. So our system is called the Soul Char toilet because it uses solar energy and produces a char product in the end. This is the phase 1 development of the unit we have as a research unit to prove our concepts. Again, we're coming from an idea on paper that had never been done before. Our concept basically takes concentrated solar energy, concentrates that energy to a point, and reflects it back down into a receiver. And at that receiver point, we have a bundle of cables that transmit the light to another location. And that's kind of the key technology innovation we developed. It took us quite a while to develop that because we fried a lot of fiber optic cables and learning about how to do this and create a lot of strong energy transmission. So we have these dishes that concentrate the energy. The fiber optics transmit the energy to a reaction chamber where the feces is from the day's collection, and it processes that waste by pyrolyzing it, which is a low oxygen environment under high temperature conditions. And the temperatures we've been able to achieve in our system are over 300 degrees Celsius during the peak of the day. So we were able to pyrolyze the human waste and produce a char product. And then we've done a lot of research on what do we do with that char. We've made briquettes, we've characterized the briquette calorific content, we've looked at off-gas issues, looked at issues around using that biochar in agriculture as well, how will they sequester nutrients or provide benefits there. And all this time, our mantra's been with the Gates Foundation has kind of set up this high-level treatment goal of using no water, no grid electricity, no external inputs, and only produces a nice end byproduct that can be useful. So we had a bunch of advantages and a bunch of disadvantages in our phase one. The advantages were that we have a solar-based design. We had this fiber optic concept. The fiber optic concept basically allows us to remove the fecal material from this area of the concentrator and bring it to a different area and allow light to come to that area. And so we have this reaction system. It's hard to see right here, but these fiber optic cables come here and they basically heat up this chamber. You can see the light there to a very high temperature. And the hardest thing is to drive off the water content, so we have a urine toilet as well as part of our system. We had a batch design in our initial design. We're looking at a continuous design system now. And again, our end products are this char. We're able to disinfect urine in a separate module using some excess heat. And the excess heat can also be used to heat water for either water purification or for home heating. So we had a lot of challenges as well. Most of our costs in our system are due to the transmission. The fiber optic cables were very, very expensive when we started. We got them down about 90% to about 10% of the original cost, but that still was a big chunk of our cost. And then the solar capture was also a big chunk of our cost. We didn't have a commercialization process in place, but we did prove our system, which is what we set out to do. We estimated the production scale cost of the current unit that we were doing in our phase one was about $12,000, which was too high for eventually rolling a lot of these out. So the high cost of the concentrator of the transmission, and we designed the system to serve a household, so about 6 to 10 people initially. And the economics there, it's very hard to make those economics work. As many of the toilet teams know, it's hard to make the economics work to reach the goal of 5 cents per person per day when you're only serving 8 to 10 people a day. So we need to make a bigger system that serves more people. Then, of course, with any solar system, it's hard to treat the waste when there's no sun. So we had to come up with something that dealt with that issue. And then some of the durability and security concerns, we have these shiny discs that for sure will get stolen somehow or somehow will walk away. And then what if someone throws rocks at this thing or there's other components like that. So those are all issues that we have to deal with. So that's where this company, Brightspace, comes in, and it's really another level working with a company that's already in commercialization for technologies. We're used to doing things in the laboratory, making prototypes, not really building something, but actually build something to another scale. So the issue of the high cost of solar transmission, Brightspace has a different type of fiber optic technology that's really reduced our cost by 10 times under our initial cost we've been doing. They also have a different technology for the solar capture. Their collection area is a lot more compact. Their tracker system is a little bit different than what we're doing. And their collectors actually use high volume commercial processing for making these collectors. We made all of ours custom, obviously, in our initial design. The system also can serve more people. The higher density packing in solar, we can get up to 100 people per day in a certain design with a shipping container type design. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the main innovation that the DOE, the Department of Energy in the US is interested in, because they have this cogeneration technology where they take the solar energy, split it up, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and produce electricity as well as producing this heat and sunlight. And then we're working on the durability and security concerns by redesigning the way the system looks. So I'll look through these. So here's the technology that's really exciting to the DOE that this company Brightspace has been working on commercializing now. They take the solar spectrum, which consists of visible light and infrared light, and they have an infrared photovoltaic system that has about 20 to 25% efficiency at converting sunlight in the infrared range into electricity. And then they split this off into the generation of electricity, and then we can also utilize the light that we were utilizing in the beginning, this visible light, for the high temperature transmission through the fiber optics. So with these two things, we have a lot of value now added in the next generation system that we're looking to develop. So the DNI, the direct neural installation, it varies all over the world, obviously. In India, we need DNI, let's say in our phase one, we assumed about 3 to 4 DNI, and a lot of India and Africa has very hot spots. Most of India has over 5 DNI, and a lot of Africa, like we saw in wave presentation, very high in solar radiance, and also in the northern area as well. So there's a lot of areas that have plenty of solar energy to make these systems work. So as far as the cost reduction goes in the fiber optics, our phase one, we had about $6 per watt type of cost here. much lower here. We have 10 times efficiency. The new system, and then the solar capture is about 4 to 8 times lower in cost as well. So we really see our costs going down based on our initial designs here with this Bright Space company. And then as far as power delivery goes, this graph goes through a number of things, but what I want to point out is the total system peak 5-grid power delivery. With our system, we have about 750 watts, and we can get almost 3,000 to 5,000 watts, depending on how many solar collectors we have. That's a lot of energy to deal with and to use. Total energy delivered is could be up to 170 megajoules. And then the cost of their system is much lower. And this is the cost for the shipping container and all the solar components. We estimate less than 2 cents per person per day, depending on the solar installation being used. And the nice thing, we have this electricity generation as well, about 5 kilowatt hours per day or 10 kilowatt hours per day, depending on the system. So looking at various levels of DNI, you can predict and model how many people we can serve, what the cost is, and the electricity generated. This is a small system scenario where we have a shipping container with about 24 solar collectors and a larger one with about 48. And you can see the numbers here, very low cost per person. We can treat up to 100 persons' waste and produce almost 15 kilowatt hours per day of electricity. So with our phase 2 approach, we hope to design a system around this shipping container kind of design, like you've seen a few times. You saw it in the Caltech presentation. And we can really go to different levels. Ultimately, we want to go to char, but it's a lot cheaper, obviously, if we just want to disinfect the waste or we just want to dry the waste. This is where we'd like to also collaborate with a number of other folks working on solar issues, or maybe that could benefit from solar issues that are using a burning process or a pyrolysis process, and they need to dry their sludge out to a level that makes it more efficient. So in this kind of level 1, we can have disinfected fecal sludge, which will be a lot smaller system. And at treatment level 2, we can have a dry sludge which we can reuse. And at level 3, which is what we'd like to do, is create this biochar, create a product that can potentially be sold, that can be made into briquettes. And certainly all these systems will also be able to disinfect the urine and produce stabilized end product. So we're thinking about a business model as well, generating electricity, providing heating of water for shower perhaps. We're having kind of a village center, a community center, a toilet area, also a place to charge cell phones. We have a lot of excess electricity. We're going to need some of that electricity to move the feces around in our system, to move the parts around, but we'll have excess electricity to provide for uses in the community. And this size provides a little bit of momentum and allowing a lot of people to use the system and having maybe some credits to reap some of the electricity benefits from their own personal use. So that's our vision right now. We're looking for partners. We're looking for folks to work with us. Brightspace is a great partner, and we're hoping to be developing our new system over the next few months and looking for places to work in the field. So I hope to talk to some of you folks here. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Questions, please. Okay, so what we can do is we can invite all of our speakers in the afternoon session because we still have 10 minutes, and then ask questions to the whole panel. And now the speakers from the solar presentations, and including the previous speakers as well, if they're still here.
I think that's it.
Okay, so do we have any questions now?
My question is, Mr. Reddy, you mentioned about
the operating guidelines in Tamil Nadu. These are for design and construction of septic tanks. So are these guidelines are just for new construction of new septic tanks, or what you are going to do about the old or already built septic tanks which are not functional or which are oversized or undersized? Is any procedure for the same?
It's for both. For the old, we need to do a survey to find out which are the sanitary detracts and the septic tanks, and give notices to those households to get them rectified. And for the new ones, in any case, we have to do this design. We have to follow the design.
Other questions?
Thank you all for the nice presentations. My name is Anna Nordin from the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. I want to address a question to the last two toilet interventions. Like, the concept is to not have any energy inputs, external energy inputs, but have you thinking about making life cycle analysis to see how much energy input that is needed for these components and compare it to the lifespan of the different components? Thank you.
Because we don't know much about the manufacturing side yet, it's hard to do that in the initial phase, but certainly that is an analysis that has to get done. Look at the whole life cycle analysis, but that carbon footprints and things like that. So that's something we definitely want to do. I mean, there's benefits to having no external energy inputs, but those are offset by the high cost of components. Obviously, it would be a valuable product. It's a great point.
I think our biggest challenge is social acceptance, and yours as well. If the jar is used for cooking, that's one of the biggest cultural hurdles. The way we've addressed that is, whilst we've introduced the stove community, which uses conventional biomass, which is acceptable, stove design is we're seeing one way. If the biochar from the sludge is used, we can use it to heat water, which can be run external to the house. So those are the kind of challenges that we also have.
Yeah, to that point, we did bring some human fecal biochar to the India Fair. We cooked with it on site and fed some of the workers roasted peanuts and things like that. They were sure it didn't taste anything like poop, so that was good. It didn't smell like poop.
This is sort of a general question, I guess, to the very good the toilet talks. The initial design parameters for gates said no water in, or only clean water out. But that neglects or doesn't account for the need for hand washing and hygiene that needs to occur at toilets. And so now that the scope is broadening a little bit, when you're thinking about installations that provide multiple services, I'm wondering if what the role of hand washing station is, and if that's changed the way that you're thinking about the design of the toilets as well.
In our case, it's actually the recycled water that comes out of the faucet. Because it's chlorinated, it's disinfected. A problem in India was pointed out that a lot of Indians, when they go in, want to wash their face with the sink water. So we probably have to have some notification that, be careful. But it's essentially disinfected. It looks clear. And with soap, it's equally suitable. The question is long-term exposure. I don't think it should be a problem, but it's hard to predict at this point in time. But we're all set up for diverting a certain fraction of the water to hand washing.
One more point about that. We also have, in our system, we designed for hand washing, and we disinfect. We mix that with the urine and disinfect that all the closed loop modular system, just by pasteurization. And then you can reuse that urine to make
concerns maybe if you put a high-tech building into areas of education people, the maintenance might be difficult. Also, it's no ownership. You put something in place and the people, they have no ownership. From a manufacturer point, it's smart to build it and then sell it on so there's a revenue stream for every unit you sell. Could it be an option to have the toilet built in the location according to the cultural and social demand or whatever people would like to choose for a toilet, and then have a semi-decentralized treating unit, maybe per block, or instead of having it on any unit, so you don't need a PhD to operate it and to maintain it.
So there's an issue with taking the waste out from one location and bringing it to a centralized facility to treat it. So you have to have a container system, which does exist, and we've seen a lot of this at this meeting. So that's definitely a way to go, and then keep things a lot more simple, less moving parts. But we're definitely envisioning a maintenance person being needed for our system as is the Caltech system. And you need human input. There's no system that works without someone working on it. Even our toilets, we flush them, but there's a lot of people behind that wall that take care of the waste. It's just, there's no one single ideal situation.
We can control our unit on a smartphone, so we get signals when one component may not be functioning the way it should. We can change the coding on the initial setup from afar, so we've actually recoded the Indian prototypes from California. We can do it by SMS or smartphone. It was pointed out that there are more smartphones or more cell phones in India than toilets. So people can maintain a smartphone, and you don't need a PhD to operate a smartphone. That's pretty clear. So all you need to do is use one of these to make it operate, and then change. They'll tell you what needs to be changed, and it's not too difficult to do that.
So we have one last question before the break. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Jimmy Huang from Asian Bank. I'm very interested about what Professor Hoffman presented. Just a question. Is this toilet able to deal with the toilet paper? Because you said basically there's no solid waste coming out from the system. And also the second, we saw this membrane used to leak afterwards. So the cost of the membrane and also the replacement of the membrane, is that included in the routine operation?
Yeah.
And the third part, we can see the pattern pieces, the complicated one. Is this toilet related to any patent technology? So if we plan to use it for the future, is this related to any patent technology, so we need to consider?
Yeah. Okay, there are three parts. The first part is toilet paper. That's why we have the anal washing devices. You probably know from Southeast Asia and India that anal washing is quite common. Even here in the hotels, there is a little spray gun that you can use to do most of the heavy cleaning, and then just a few dabs to dry off with toilet paper. And we have containers that open and shut automatically, and you put the toilet paper in. We can certainly handle toilet paper. You'd like to avoid it, and hope that people use the sort of pump a day or the anal spray washing system to do the initial cleanup, so you aren't too dependent on using a lot of toilet paper. Let's see, number two was membranes. They're just polystyrene noodles. So it's not a membrane, inexpensive membrane sheet. It's just a support system for biofilm growth. We're using a high-tech name, membrane bioreactor, but it's really just a series of polystyrene noodles suspended into the reactor system. And it's kind of cheating calling it a baffled reactor, but essentially it's like a curtain of polystyrene noodles that are incredibly cheap. It's like packing popcorn that people use routinely, but it's just in noodle form. Yeah, patents. The Gates Foundation stresses IP, and we have a variety of patents that have been processed, but we have to have global access for basically manufacturing and production. So the Gates Foundation has thought of all those complexities, and unless you have patent coverage on a global basis, anybody can reproduce the system by reverse engineering. It's mainly an issue in Europe and the United States. It's hard to control things in Korea, China, or elsewhere. So, but we'll see how far that goes. We do license the technology, but it has to be open according to the Gates Foundation.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of our speakers.